Hey guys, welcome back to another Gaming Memories video. Here we're actually taking a look at All-Star Racing 2 that was actually released on the PlayStation back in 2003. This is actually a sequel to the first All-Star Racing game that was actually released a while before it, and it primarily tries to utilise having different games all in the one kind of package, all broken down into different game modes. So you have the likes of motorbike Grand Prix racing, you have like Formula 1 style racing, you have truck racing, and you have kart racing. Now, this game is slightly a little bit different compared to the original game, because the original game did actually have very similar game modes, but this one here does try to break it up a little bit. Like, there's still the bike mode in it, but you do have the addition of karts and trucks, which wasn't really in the original game. The developers of this game also created a few other games. They created the likes of Stock Car Racing, 5-Star Racing, and All-Star Action. The games themselves all pretty much primarily use the same game engine, and a lot of the same assets and like tracks and all the bits and pieces in the game have all pretty much, a lot of the games have been reused. But in this sequel, compared to some of the other games that I mentioned, the developers actually have added in a few additional extras. There is more tracks, and there is more tracks based off the different game modes that you actually choose. Like if you're doing bike racing or you're racing like the trucks, you do get individual tracks based off each of the game modes. There is a few more vehicles available now, not so much so compared to even with the original game. The original game only allowed, in each of the game modes, only allowed you access to 2 tracks, and you only had access to like 2 cars. This here pretty much does give you more, but it's more of the same type of car. Just all you can really do is change the colours. There's not really much in terms of like the handling characteristics between each car. There's no real difference between them. The only really added benefit is the fact is that there is more tracks for each game mode. Instead of only having or being limited to 2 tracks, you've actually got 4 or 5. Some case you might actually have maybe 6, and it just allows you just to kind of break the game up a little bit. You do also have a kart racing section, so where you go in like go-kart style tracks, and it's also a lot kind of like shorter. Now the graphics themselves again aren't much of an improvement over the original game, because again it's just using the same game engine and everything. They pretty much reuse a lot of the same models and aesthetics from the original games, as I mentioned. So it really is just more of the same thing. So you do have access to like different types of courses, which is good. But as you can see here with the likes of the car, all you're really doing is just changing the colour. You're not really changing any other aesthetics towards it. So it does limit kind of like what's available in the game. Even though it does try to offer a lot more, it's still fairly limited in what's available to you at the time when you go to actually play it. Now, like the original games, they're not great, but they're okay. I know that these games didn't get good reviews in magazines. I know that they got slated an awful lot. They do try to offer up a lot of unique kind of concepts, but they're not really put together as well as say other games that would have been on the PlayStation at that time, which is a pity, because considering the amount of ideas that are actually in the game, the games themselves would have actually had really good potential. Because even though the graphics, they wouldn't be fantastic compared to other games on the console, they're not that bad. They're actually okay. It's just there's some of the other elements that just you feel that was kind of like left out. It just felt a little bit more rushed. But again, the likes of these style of games, because they're budget friendly games. This game did also get not only released in Europe but also in North America as well. And they are budget friendly titles, so usually these titles were always kind of like an avenue for the likes of smaller development companies or independent developers to be able to get their foot in on the console market so that they can develop games for the system. And you always notice that in the later stages of a console's lifespan, you do see a lot of these games start to actually appear. The same thing even happens today. A lot of newer developers and wannabe game enthusiasts start to get involved with game development, so they try to create something and try to get it out there. So at least it does give them an avenue to pretty much gain a bit of experience and to learn how the whole game development side of things actually works. Some games are actually okay, some pretty much not, and you kind of get some that are in between. This is kind of on the latter end of that. It's okay. It's like, it plays fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. The handling even can be a little bit twitchy, but when you get the hang of it, it's not too bad. It's just that it still feels limited, even though it does actually have more than like the previous games, as I mentioned, on offer. It still just feels limited, and again, like the previous games, there's no real kind of incentive to want to play on other than doing like single player races. There's no like kind of like campaign, like say even like in the Formula 1 side of things here, where you would have a campaign where you're trying to gain points and maybe win a championship or so forth. There's nothing like that in the game at all. It's literally just you're given a selection of tracks, 1 or 2 vehicles, and then you can just play it then at your leisure. It'd be more of a casual based game. If you're into casual style games, then it may be something that may be worth looking into. But again, it depends. Like, there are better games and better racing games out on there on the PlayStation. But if it's something that you do want to actually look into, and if you want to do something, look into something that has a little bit or tries a little bit of everything, you could definitely try it out. Even if you want to play it just casually, even just for a few minutes, just to see what you think for yourself. Because it does have like a lot of aesthetics in it. It does have like, say, trucks, kart racing, bike racing, and likes of Formula 1 Grand Prix style racing. So it does have something there pretty much for everybody, even though it wouldn't be as executed as well compared to some other games on the system. But if you are into these quirkier style of games and you're willing to give something a go, there's no harm in actually having a look at this, and you can play it for a while. Like, it's okay just for a casual type of play. It is an improvement on the original, in fairness to it, but again, it had the potential. It could have had so much more, but it's still let down by the fact is that it's still limited. They didn't put as much thought behind it. Sometimes it just, with games like these, it just feels like that it's more of a quick cash grab than it is actually something that's going to be legitimately fun and worthwhile playing. But I'd love to know what your thoughts are on this game, or even these series of games that were released on the PlayStation back in the day. Did you manage to own any of these games, or did you even play them? Did you like them, or maybe not so much? Be sure to share them down in the comments below. So if you have enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like. Also be sure to subscribe to the channel, and make sure to hit that bell icon to be updated whenever I release future videos. And also share the video, as I am going to be exploring a lot more of these quirky style games on the PlayStation and share my thoughts and experiences with everyone. So as always, make sure to keep playing those classic games and enjoying them, and keep those gaming memories alive.